Right now, a major church and state showdown leaves the Supreme Court in a 4-4 tie. We're going to bring in a legal scholar to examine the impact of yesterday's ruling. Also, millions of people heading out for the Memorial Day weekend. Find out how you can stay safe while you're driving to your destination. And next year's World Cup is not just about the ATL. See which other city in the metro is gearing up for the global party. This is The Take. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. This is The Take. I'm Aisha Howard in for Chessie McNeil. Well, we're going to go beyond the headlines here and look at why and how stories impact you and your community. Experts will share what they know, and we'll have a little bit of fun while we're at it. Yesterday, the U.S. Supreme Court split evenly in a high-profile challenge over the nation's first religious charter school. The High Court leaves in place a ruling from Oklahoma's top court that found the proposed Catholic school is unconstitutional. The 4-4 split was made possible because conservative Justice Amy Coney Barrett recused herself. She had ties to attorneys who represent the Catholic virtual school. Oklahoma State Superintendent blasted the court's deadlock.
I believe that this decision is antithetical to the religious freedoms in our U.S. Constitution. I believe it's antithetical to the rights that parents have to direct their children's education.
Is Professor Eric Siegel, a legal scholar at Georgia State University who teaches on the federal courts and constitutional law. Welcome to The Take. Let's start immediately with just an overview of this case and kind of the general impacts of yesterday's ruling, Mr. Siegel.
Well, this case is part of a long-standing effort by the right to end public schools in America. And what they were trying to do here was create a taxpayer-funded religious school that was going to be run as a Catholic school with taxpayer dollars. And the quote of the person you just put up on, you just recorded, that's one perspective, the Oklahoma School Board. But the state of Oklahoma said, we don't want this. We don't want tax dollars spent on religious public schools. And the case goes, and the lower courts agreed with the state of Oklahoma and against the private school. So then what happens is it goes to the Supreme Court. Justice Barrett, who taught at Notre Dame, it has connections to Notre Dame. This was a lawsuit brought by Notre Dame's, quote, Religious Liberty Clinic. It's actually a religion superiority clinic. But leaving that aside for the moment, she had to recuse herself. And I give her a lot of credit for recusing herself. There are other justices on this court who might not have recused themselves in a similar situation. She did the right thing. But because of that, the court deadlocked 4-4. Which is very rare, as you said, and almost never happens because there are 9 justices. For there to be a tie, one justice has to be not there. Now, the year Justice Scalia passed away, and the year that Senator McConnell kept a seat open back in 2016, the court deadlocked all the time, 4-4, because there were only 8 justices. I just want to mention very quickly that Justice Kagan has said many times, that was a good year, she said. We compromised more. We issued narrower decisions because there was 4-4. In any event, this tie means that the lower court decision remains the law. The Supreme Court decision has no effect whatsoever. And the lower court said exactly the right thing, in my opinion. The lower court said tax dollars can't be used to support religious education. And that is the law of this country now and was before that opinion. I do think this court today, Supreme Court, is going to change that in a couple years in a case when Justice Barrett is not recused, and then there'll be 5 votes to uphold this, and I think that will be a sad day for America.
Now, with the lower court's ruling here staying in place, how do you think that impacts the constitutional interpretation of the Establishment Clause here, especially when you talk about publicly funded religious charter schools?
Well, technically, the court's decision has no effect. And so then the effect of the Court of Appeals decision is only in those states, Oklahoma and a few other states in that circuit. Doesn't affect Georgia technically at all, or any other circuit. However, there are forces out there that want taxpayer dollars to fund public education. And they're going to keep trying to require states to fund those kinds of schools. And there are 4 votes to let them do it, and probably 5. So this is coming back.
Let's jump to the other side of this. One key part of the ruling was that Chief Justice John Roberts appeared to side with the liberal justices, resulting in that tie. What do you think this suggests about his judicial philosophy when you talk about separation of church and state?
So we don't know that, right? Because they didn't disclose who voted for what. So we're guessing that Justice Roberts sided with the liberals. Now, in this case, it's a good guess based on the oral argument. But we don't know. We really don't know. They should tell us, by the way, right? Rule of law. Just tell us who voted for what. Justice Roberts, every now and then, sprinkles his conservatism with a liberal vote, I think in the interests of kind of court legitimacy, if you know what I mean. But let's be clear about this. 99% of the time, Justice Roberts votes with the conservatives. He is not in any way a moderate. But I do think in this case, he knows what would happen if, for example, the state of Georgia had to fund private religious schools. That would really, or magnet religious schools, that would really be a problem. And Justice Roberts knows this. He's not a big fan of upheaval, so maybe that explains his vote. I will tell you what doesn't explain his vote: law. Because he has voted over the last 8 years to really handicap how public schools operate. So that's not what he's worried about. But I do think he's worried about upheaval.
Professor Siegel, I got to say, you were the perfect person for this interview. Your passion on this subject runs deep. We thank you for your expertise and your service to Georgia State University. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, a young woman is back home in Dalton today after a long-awaited release from ICE custody. 19-year-old Jimena Arias Cristobal, a student at Dalton State College, was pulled over in early May when police mistook her vehicle for one that had committed a traffic violation. Dash cam footage later showed the error and those charges for the traffic violation were dropped. However, Arias Cristobal, who was brought to the U.S. from Mexico at the age of 4 and is undocumented, had already been transferred to ICE custody. After more than 2 weeks in detention, she was granted a $1,500 bond. That is the minimum allowed by law. She was released. In the early morning hours, she was back home and kind of reflective over all that has happened to and around her.
I think it's changed me as a person. Like I said, I guess be more humble, understand people more, and just be able to see the people around you and be able to help. It's also changed the way I've thought.
And despite the charges being dropped here, Arias Cristobal still faces deportation proceedings. The Department of Homeland Security maintains that she and her father, who was also detained after a separate traffic stop, are in the country illegally and should face consequences. Stay with us. You're watching The Take, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to The Take. Family, friends, and colleagues are mourning the loss of the young couple gunned down this week outside the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington. Joining us now is NBC Washington correspondent Alice Barr. Alice, we know this suspect is in custody, but what do we know so far about his background? Any indication that he had prior connections to extremist groups or online radicalization? What are we hearing today?
Yeah, Aisha, there's a lot of investigative work underway to try to understand more about this young man, 31-year-old Elias Rodriguez. And we have heard from the Deputy FBI Director, Dan Bongino, that the FBI is aware of certain writings allegedly authored by the suspect. They're trying to verify those, and that those writings may include social media posts that indicate a motivation to act on behalf of the Palestinian people. There does seem to be a history of his being very concerned about what's happening in Gaza, and obviously we heard him chanting "Free, Free Palestine" after his arrest. So that seems to be clear, but there needs to be a lot more looked into as far as your question about radicalization, as far as, you know, what may have led him up to this point, whether anti-Semitism itself is explicitly at the heart of this. Those are all the questions that the FBI is looking into. They've been combing through his phone, they've been speaking to family members, and yesterday they conducted a raid at his apartment in Chicago as they're looking to pin down more details about a motive.
So many questions here, and just heartbreak for these two families. This couple, 30-year-old Yaron Lashinsky and 26-year-old Sarah Milgrom, was involved in peace-building efforts. So how has the international community, particularly Israeli and Palestinian leaders, kind of responded here to the symbolism of their deaths?
Yeah, I mean, there's been international condemnation. We've heard from the leaders of many, many countries. Of course, the United States, chief among them, President Trump, has been very vocal about calling this a clear act of anti-Semitism that cannot be allowed to happen and that there cannot be hatred and radicalization in this country. Certainly, Israeli leaders have been speaking out very forcefully about what is at the heart of this, the targeted attacking of, people outside of a Jewish center. One of them, Sarah, was Jewish, but we are hearing that Yaron, in fact, identified as Christian, that his father was Jewish, but his mother was Christian. So it just all points back to the senselessness of this. And as you said, both of these young people were involved in peace building. We've seen on their LinkedIn pages where they talk about wanting to work at the intersection of peace building and religion. And Sarah's father actually spoke to NBC News and talked about her love of learning, her desire for peace. And he recalled a recent summer job where the organization where she worked, its sole purpose was bringing young Palestinian and young Israelis together. And of course, you can't even put into words the level of heartbreak. He said that Sarah was as perfect as any human being could possibly be.
So Alice, when you talk about their peace efforts here, this is a hate crime. So how are federal authorities sort of differentiating between this being labeled a hate crime or an act of terrorism, maybe even both here?
Yeah, I don't know that they're necessarily differentiating at this point. We heard from one of the top officials with the FBI here in Washington calling this both an act of terror and a directed violent attack against the Jewish community. That means a hate crime as well. So I think at this point they're investigating it through both lenses, and we do know that there are federal charges involved in this as well, and in fact that the suspect has the possibility of facing the death penalty as well through this.
All right, Alice, thank you so much for staying on top of this for us. It has been indeed a rough 24 hours for all involved here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, let's look now in on the tarmac at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, where a lot of people have been taken to the skies this Memorial Day weekend. AAA projects roughly 3.6 million passengers booking a flight for the holiday. That's up around 2% from last year. As for the roads, you can expect them to be even more jam-packed than normal. You're looking live on I-85 South just before 400, but GDOT is now ready to keep the highways and byways just like this, moving as smooth as possible. As we do every Friday, let's welcome in GDOT spokesperson Natalie Dale. All right, Natalie, thanks for being with us. AAA says this could be the busiest Memorial Day travel weekend in nearly 20 years. How prepared are you guys for the next several days?
Well, like pretty much everyone, as soon as I get off with y'all, I'm headed to the airport. So I'm glad we got the live look in. We're ready. So what we do in advance of these major holidays is we pull all road construction lane closures that we can. Now, if there is an emergency or, for example, we're building a bridge and the lane just isn't ready yet, that wouldn't be a case. But in every case around the state where we can pull lane closures related to construction, we do that starting at noon today through 5 a.m. Tuesday morning in an effort to sort of ease this holiday travel buzz. So we'll be doing that. Of course, we know based on our predictions and based on our historical data that today, starting at noon, we're going to have the heaviest traffic. Today, it tapers off throughout the weekend as people get where they're going, spend time with family and friends, begins to peak a little bit back on Monday as people are coming in. So you're going to want to, as I say every week pretty much, you're going to want to know before you go. Just make sure that your route is free and clear, make sure it's not too backed up, and if you can delay travel, certainly do that.
All right, so last year we did see a high number of crashes in the state during the weekend. We're talking more than 500 with more than 250 injuries statewide. Given that, any new outreach or sort of public safety campaigns targeting driver behavior this year?
Well, when we look at holiday weekends like this, like the 4th of July, anytime people are traveling, certainly anytime people are drinking and driving, we do see an increase in crashes on our roadways, as well as, unfortunately, fatalities on our roadways. And so as we enter into this summer season, when more people are out and about on the road, they have the family packed up, it is vital that you sort of take those check marks to make yourself the best commuter, the best traveler you can be. And that is buckle up before you even start your car. Know your route so you're not stressed, you're not frazzled, you're not guessing, you're not that person who cuts across 4 lanes of traffic to get to the exit that you knew you were taking the whole time. Put your phone down. If you are celebrating, have a designated driver. These are seemingly easy things, but it's things that we as motorists continue to fall short on. So just make sure that you are going through this checklist of how you can be the most present on the road when you're behind the wheel.
And we have these busy travel holidays like this. Tell me, does GDOT roll out the hero units any differently, especially in the busiest corridors around the metro?
So we have heroes on the road. As you know, we are gearing up to return to that 24/7 service as we've been building up our hero units over the past year. So we are almost at full capacity in that department. And so we do have, whether it's in the metro area and we have hero units, or throughout the state we have champ units who are like, you know, the cousin to hero, but they will help you if you're traveling outside of metro Atlanta. They are, of course, keeping close eyes on the road if you need them. 511 is the number you're going to dial when you're safely pulled to the side or in a safe place. Dial 511 to get a hero or a champ unit out to you if you need help. Of course, we have a lot of people traveling to our state. We're not just all leaving. We have a lot of visitors to the metro area and to Georgia, to our beaches during the summer, during this time of year. So we want them to know about those resources as well. So of course, they're watching. 511 is the number you're going to dial to get all the resources. We have a 511 app where you can sort of know before you go. Important things to do as you hit the road in Georgia.
All right, Natalie, I'm a little envious. I'm staying here this weekend. I got to know where you're headed.
Well, don't be too envious. No offense. I'm going to Oklahoma City, which is definitely not the tropical capital of the United States, but we have family there. So our kids have not been in a while. So we're headed out to Oklahoma City. Fingers crossed the weather is good for us because they've had some bad weather out there this past weekend. So we're headed to see family and we're going to be safe doing it. Thanks for asking.
Doesn't matter where they are. Family is the most important. And we wish you guys safe travels and everyone traveling through and around the metro. Plenty more in store for you. This is The Take on 11Alive Plus. Stay with us. Welcome back. Taking a look today at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, where the first of 8 matches for next year's World Cup will take place 388 days from now. For people who can't get in to catch the excitement, the city of Decatur is officially opening its doors for one amazing watch party. Here now is Mayor Patty Garrett, the mayor of Decatur, to tell us all about what's being planned there. Welcome, Mayor. Tell us, why have you all decided to use the World Cup to turn Decatur into this huge party?
Well, good morning. I'm happy to be here. We are turning Decatur into a great watch party for the World Cup that will be here in about a year. And we decided to do this because we, first of all, are a big soccer community. We say we're a soccer mecca in Decatur, and we're a festival town. I think everyone in the metro area knows that Decatur loves to celebrate and we love to have festivals. So it was the perfect combination.
Give us the more details behind the Watch Fest.
Oh, sure. We are calling it Watch Fest 26 for the FIFA World Cup 2026. We will have a variety of music, games, events, all on our square, and we will have over 40 businesses participating and showing games in our restaurants and pubs. And we also hope to have a big screen to show some of the prime time matches so that people can come to Decatur. They can see a music event, they can watch a soccer game, and they can go to one of our amazing businesses.
And tell us, what kind of economic impact are you hoping to get from this? Because you got to bring dollars into the city, right?
Of course we do. And we don't have all of the numbers figured out yet, but we do know that our businesses will definitely benefit from having people come and stay in our city or visit our city, come in and even maybe take Marta to one of the matches or go to Fan Fest in downtown Atlanta and then come back to Decatur to watch some of the games. So we know that our hotels will benefit, our restaurants and pubs will certainly benefit, and all of our small businesses will benefit, and our residents will benefit from just the feeling of celebration and community that we think this event will bring to our city.
Now, you know, there's so many other events coming to the city. So other events down in the Gulch of Atlanta. You hoping they can kind of put Decatur on the map for these Super Bowl possibilities, Final Four? Do you think you'll keep trying to expand Decatur in that way for future events?
Absolutely. We also hope that there will be a Women's World Cup happening and at the United States, and will be one of the areas that will have some games, and that Atlanta will get some of those games. But of course, we hope that visitors will come to Decatur. It's so easy to get to Decatur and to the stadium on MARTA, and we're really hoping that people will ride MARTA back and forth and find a warm, comfortable, fun place to enjoy the World Cup. Over 104 games are planned, and so we plan to have a month-long celebration. And so we want to make sure people know about it. We invite people to come see our little city that goes big on events.
Mayor Garrett, has this made you a soccer fan, or were you already a soccer fan? I'm a new one.
I have been a soccer fan for a long time. My children played soccer growing up, 2 played in college. I have grandchildren playing soccer, and my plans for this weekend are to go to the Decatur FC game, the women's team that plays in Decatur, and their inaugural game this evening is at 7 o'clock. And then I'm going to the Atlanta United game on Sunday. And then maybe on Monday, I'll go out and enjoy a trail or something. But if there's a soccer game close, I'm usually there.
All right, you're committed. You're committed. I've only done soccer when my daughter was 2, and it was chaotic. So I got to try again. We'll try again. Mayor Patty Garrett.
Bring your daughter to City of Decatur to watch the women's soccer team. They're a great opportunity to see fun soccer.
That is awesome. I'm sure she will love it. Thank you so much, Mayor Garrett. Stay with us. I'm back with my final take. You're watching The Take. Welcome back, everybody. Before we go, my final take. I take summer barbecue serious. If you watch 11Alive Morning News, you know I've been talking about grilling for at least 2 weeks. I love the staples, hamburgers, hot dogs, but one reigns supreme. Surveys show that burgers are more popular than hot dogs this time of year, but just by a little bit. But the great debate is really about hot dogs and what you put on them, the toppings, right? The National Hot Dog and Sausage Council commissioned a survey and found 68% of people in America who eat hot dogs, they top them with mustard. Ketchup comes in at 61%, relish 41%. How about a chili dog? My hometown, Flint, Michigan, we're kind of known for coney dogs, as we call them. That's 30%. Sauerkraut, not my thing, 20%. Coleslaw, I think that's more like street hot dogs, 12%. But I have a different take. If that hot dog is on the grill, perfectly charred, with that smoky flavor, barbecue sauce with a dash of mustard is the way to go. It's really the only way. Nice little drizzle, barbecue sauce, perfect char. Oh, that'll do it. That's my take. Thanks for watching. Have a fun and safe Memorial Day weekend.